Welcome again. I'll be writing an essay on the physiology of the human sexual act. And this was asked in second test of 2017. Now, the outline goes that we're going to do the introduction. I will talk about the male sexual act and then the different steps there, likewise in the females, and then their different steps. Now, let's begin. For the human sexual act, the introduction should be that this is the mating of the male and the female for the eventual purpose of what? Conception or for pleasure. Two reasons are that where when a man and a woman meet, two reasons, either for conception, that's for that's for pregnancy and eventually for childbirth, or for pleasure. Good. So the mating of the male and the females for the sole purpose of conception or for what? For pleasure. Now, what about the difference? So I'll discuss the male sexual, discuss the female. But for what happens is that the steps are remembered using EPOR, where E stands for excitation, P for plateau, O for orgasm, R for resolution. So what I would do is simply that I'll be comparing both of them together. So that makes it easier for your remembrance. Now, for the male, for excitation, let me begin with the male's excitation. First things first, there are 2 points you should have, about 3 points you should say. You say that it is also called arousal state. It's also called arousal state. Okay? Now, secondly, is that the end result is that it will cause penile erection. Penile erection. And then lastly, you should be able to explain the erection reflex. How does the erection occur in the body? I will now explain it in detail here, then you now put it in words. Now, for that, I'll show you let's say we have the penis like this. All right. Then the glans penis and all. And then also we have the central nervous system, the midbrain pons medulla, like this. Now imagine a situation where there are some stimulus. What are examples of stimulus that we are going to see that eventually causes this reflex? Stimulus of the likes of erotic thoughts, okay? The sight of a naked woman, okay? Even the touch on the penis. Now, those are things that we can consider. So erotic thought, naked women, the sight of a naked woman, and even some touch. Now, these touch are going to stimulate the tactile receptors. Tactile receptors located on the glans penis. Now, what this will do, once it has stimulated those tactile receptors on the glans penis, this will send afferent impulse to the central nervous system for processing. Central nervous system will then fire back the efferent. So this is the afferent, this is the efferent. Now, what's the end result for the efferent? The efferent will go to blood vessels. Let's say this is a blood vessel. On going to the blood vessel, what will the efferent do? It will cause, via a second messenger, to increase levels of adenylate of guanyl cyclase, increase levels of guanyl cyclase. Guanyl cyclase will increase the conversion of GTP to cyclic GMP. Cyclic GMP automatically has some functions to cause vasodilation. And when there is vasodilation, it will increase the amount of blood that is sent through that particular organ. So more blood passes through. Remember, the diameter has increased because of vasodilation. So as more blood reaches, the penis becomes engorged. And that engorgement is clearly visible as erection. So the erection reflex number 1, you say the stimulus for it are erotic thought, the sight of the naked woman, and touch. The receptors are the tactile receptors on the glans penis. Afferents are sent to the central nervous system for processing, and efferent are sent back, which will cause increase in levels of guanyl cyclase, which will cause increase in conversion of GTP to cyclic GMP, and this will eventually lead to vasodilation. Now, that is what you'll have written here. So, excitation in the males, we say, also known as arousal state, will eventually lead to penile erection and then explain the erection reflex. Now, this particular reflex, by the way, is under the influence of parasympathetic nervous system. So, it's also good you add that. Now, for the female's excitation, or better still, for the easier understanding, let me explain just that of the males, and then I'll explain that of the females at the end. Now, for the male plateau, you first start by defining what is plateau. What is plateau? Now, the plateau means the phase between erection and ejaculation. It is just after erection that is fully erected, but not ejaculation. So the phase between erection and ejaculation. So it's flattened. Okay, so what I'm saying is, if I am to plot a graph, there is excitation, then there is plateau, and then orgasm, and then everything comes back again, resolution. So excitation 1, then plateau, then orgasm, then resolution. So that's what I'm saying. So that point between erection and orgasm or ejaculation is what we call the plateau. Now, in the males here, there is going to be increase in organ size. So organ will keep increasing in size. Which organ am I talking about? The penis. Remember we said penile erection in the previous one, increase in organ size. Now, what happens again? There is going to be some associated emissions. These associated emissions are not the full-blown spermatozoa or the full-blown sperms, but it may have a few spermatozoa, but it is not the main one. So remember, we are going to have associated emissions from some of those organs like the vas deferens, the epididymis, that's the epididymis vas deferens, then which will eventually empty itself in the urethra. And because these emissions are then added into the urethra for eventual release, primarily at the plateau, what you also have to add is that there is going to be closure of the internal sphincter. Closure of internal urethral sphincter. The reason is to prevent what we call retrograde emissions. By retrograde emissions, I mean that urine does not flow down, and these emissions too will not go backwards into the bladder and all of that. So these are things you see in the male plateau stage. It is the stage between the erection and ejaculation. There is continual increase in organ size. There is associated emissions, and with a few spermatozoa there is closure of internal urethral sphincter, which prevents what we call retrograde emission. Now, for orgasm, what are the things you are going to write in your exams? In your essay there, for orgasm, you say that orgasm, which is the third phase, is going to be under the influence of the sympathetic nervous system. Orgasm, okay? Now, for orgasm, what else will I have to say? It is that phase where ejaculation occurs. Now, it is necessary you add that the first ejaculate has the highest volume, while subsequent ejaculates will be reducing. So you would say that, remember, euphoria increases also. Euphoria increases. All right. Now, also add that for every ejaculation progressively decreases. It progressively decreases. Ejaculation progresses. So the first is the highest, and then subsequent ones will reduce. That is for orgasm. All right. Now, also note that males have only one orgasm. Males have just one orgasm. So after orgasm resolution, it starts again. But this is not going to be true for females. So when we talk about females, I will tell you that females have multiple orgasms. Okay. So it is sympathetic, this and all that. Now, add also that because we say there's sympathetic nervous system, there's going to be some associated tachycardia, increase in blood pressure. There's going to be hyperventilation, etc. So these are things you have to note in orgasm, that it is under the influence of the sympathetic nervous system. Ejaculation occurs, euphoria increases, the ejaculation progressively decreases such that the first one is more than other subsequent. Males have only one orgasm. Tachycardia, increase in blood pressure, and hyperventilation are also seen in this phase. Then for resolution, which is the last one, resolution, what are things to add here? It is also called refractory. It's also called a refractory phase. Now, what else happens during resolution? For resolution, you're going to say it is that phase after ejaculation and then the returning to baseline levels, okay? After ejaculation, and then to the return of baseline levels. By baseline levels, we mean that the penis no longer erects and then things becomes normal as when this whole sexual act had not begun. So refractory after the ejaculation and just before the return of baseline levels. Okay? So that's what I want you to write here in this ones. Now, for the females here, why I separated it is because sometimes they can say right on the human male sexual act. Somebody can say female sexual act. Well, this question was direct, say human sexual act, incorporating both males and females. Now, let's look at the female themselves. Now, for the females, what happens in the excitatory phase? Now, in the excitatory phase, again, in the females, we are going to add that there is going to be the increase in the size of some organs, size of organs like the areola, around the breast, the nipples, the breast itself, the proximal vagina, etc. Proximal vagina, etc. Number 2 in the excitation phase is that there is going to be the release of mucous substances, of mucus, to be able, mucus from the Bartholin's gland, to be able to lubricate this process. All right. Then, because of some changes that we'll see on the skin, we'll say the person may also show you sex flush. The skin is going to have a characteristic blushing appearance. So they call it sex flush. Okay. These are things you take note in the excitation. Now, in the plateau for the females, one most important thing is that continual increase or engorgement of these vessels. Engorgement continues. Now, but remember to also add that it is in plateau that we are going to reduce the vaginal orifice to at least 50% to give a firm grip to the penis, to give the penis a firm grip of the penis. That's a plateau. Now, go now to orgasm. Now, for orgasm, what are we going to see here? The one thing we are going to say in orgasm for the females is that you must remember that here we are going to be having multiple orgasms in the females. Now, also too, there's going to be contraction of pelvic muscles. Of pelvic muscles. Okay. To be better fit for this pleasure at this time, to fit the movement. You remember that it's at this point that the penis moves in and out and then eventually is releasing. So to fit the homologous, or how will I put this, simultaneous phase in the females. Now, I want to say something quickly about the plateau in the males or the plateau in the females. Please also add that vocalization also occurs there. Vocalization occurs. Okay? Intense vocalization. The person that they are going to be saying things at that point. Okay? Now, after orgasm, for females, nothing happens in resolution. So you say it is not a typical feature or a prominent feature in females. Right? So, since the females can have multiple orgasms, it might necessarily mean that once they are here, they can have many orgasms. So, never are they going to go back to baseline levels again, except at the end of the the human sexual act. But unlike the males, once orgasm has been done, everything starts back again and fresh and then begins the story. So that's why we say it is not a typical feature in the females. What are important clinicals to note about the human sexual act? Number one is impotence. Impotence, the inability to achieve firm erection with eventual what? Ejaculation. So impotence is number one. Number two is vaginismus. By vaginismus, the vagina orifice is so little, making it difficult for eventual penetration of an engorged penis. So vaginismus, okay? It or similar vaginal atrophy. Now, but vaginal atrophy is really a very bigger term or more context than this one. So simply have vaginismus. We also have the one we call sexual perversion. Sexual perversion is very rampant nowadays and is something that brings concern for all of us. Okay, for sexual perversion, you have where people abuse what was actually made for males and females, and then now they now do it what we call homosexuals for males, or females. Okay, that's sexual perversion. Okay, we also have the likes of female fragility. Okay, so the list goes on and on. There are lots of them you can list out there for your exams. Okay, even those that we have hyposexual action, those that we have hypersexual action, and a whole lot. So at least 3 or 4 in your clinicals will do you good. So these are essay on the physiology of the human sexual act. And I do hope that as it made more sense to me, it did also make sense to you. Kindly like this video, leave a comment in the comment section telling me the things that stood out for you during the course of this review essay. And then also to subscribe to this channel if you have not. I noticed that some of the subscribers have not, some of the people that watch our videos have not really subscribed. So endeavor to subscribe and then share with your friends so that we all pass these exams and it becomes a very beautiful story. Until then, see you next time.